Do it.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Candy Talk podcast. Last week we spoke about the very popular SARS protest that has gone viral, it's gone global, and it was myself, Dewale, and Bane discussing our experiences and giving our opinions on the issue. Today, we are joined by the regular Stanley and Diwali and our esteemed guest, Mary Olushaga.
Thank
Mary,
you. Thank you.
Mary, thanks for joining us. I think I can start. I can start with you. My first question to you is that um, when this end SARS movement started, I think we've been hearing about this for quite a while. I've been hearing about end SARS, I think, for about 4 to 5 years now,
Mhm.
and the it hasn't really kicked off in terms of having a very serious or a very strong hold on the activism front. But now I think it's gotten to a point where people are beginning to see that we actually look serious as Nigerians. So, can I just get your thoughts on what you think about the whole NSAS issue, just in a nutshell?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that this is a very, very exciting time in history for young Nigerians, whether it's younger millennials, whether it's Gen Z. It's a very, very exciting time in history. And you are correct. I mean, SARS initially started, I believe, with Sega, where, a lot of young men were being like harassed and brutalized by the Nigerian police force and the SARS department or division. um and he had been working on this issue for a while, so I'm not going to sort of deny him of his sort of minimal impact, albeit minimal, his minimal impact over the years, but he did have some form of influence over the NSARS movement. But what we're seeing now is a very collaborative effort. I believe Runtown, Falls, Reno, a couple of people decided to Mr. Macaroni, I think that's what he's called, is his social media brand, decided to go to, I believe it was Alausa in Ikeja. I think they stayed there one night, and I believe they went to like the toll gate, and some people held hands, and then people saw it as an opportunity, it's a very critical time because one, ASO is on strike. I mean, the last time I was on the channel, we talked about like education and all of that. So ASO is on strike. COVID, if you look at the impact of COVID, it's affected a lot of young people. They've been home. I mean, I'm not sure how it is, in Nigeria, but here, people have been home. They've been isolated for so long. People have lost their jobs. So there's that also economic impact. So I think it really forced people to say, look, if we are going to do this, let's do this now. So if you look at the context, the impact of COVID-19 on sort of the economic landscape of what's going on in Nigeria, and just the collaborative effort where you're looking at the feminist coalition and all of that. It just came together, and the timing worked, and people are running with it. So it's a very exciting time in Nigerian history, and I'm grateful to be experiencing it. Even though I'm not live on ground, I've participated in other ways. So it's very exciting.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Stanley, I have a question for you. One of my biggest concern with this kind of movement is not the what would deem as the oppressor. So in this case, the Nigerian government. I'm more concerned about the 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 guys within us, like the oppressed, like normal day Nigerians. That's who I'm actually worried about. And there's been a lot of talk about what the end goal is, how this is going to end, or when it is going to end, um, why this group doesn't have any form of leadership whatsoever. I'm sure you would have heard, mostly from the older generation, some kind of veiled critique of this movement, So they sort of come in a way that they're not actively, or they're not coming directly to criticize the movement, but you can see the undertone that it's sort of veiled, and they are trying to look for holes just to go back to the status quo. Because I think when we protest, or when we perform this this kind of activism, it makes everyone feel uncomfortable. Because if you are protesting in the ground, you're not comfortable. You are the protest at Abuja, and you can't say that was a comfortable site for you. And the people who are not even participating in the protest, they can come back and say, oh, there was a lot of traffic, there's a lot of shooting. We've lost a lot of Nigerians that were not even participating. But those guys then come back with reasons to try to, find gaps or criticize that movement. Have you experienced this? And do you sort of have any I know you would have strong opinions to counter what they are saying. So what is your response?
First of all, you're right. It has not been like exactly a comfortable situation to be in. But no matter what part of Nigeria you are, you are at, you have experienced some sort of inconvenience with respect to this protest. Yes, you're right about all of the veiled threats. All of the disapproval. Subtle disapproval. And when you want to see it, it starts from when they say, oh, these children, they are not, that is an indirect way of saying you have not grown up enough to be able to make a decision that is acceptable to everyone. They are refusing to recognize, um, and so I understand this. To my mom, I'm still a child. To my mom, every one of us were still kids to her, and she thinks she has a right to question every single one of her decisions. Is a cultural thing, but I also think that this was the initial reaction. Um, right now, there's a change that people are now realizing. People that are used to protest happening for 3 days, and then it's broken up and everybody go back to their businesses, are now beginning to realize that this is completely different. It's no longer going to be business as usual. That is going to is different. We're organized. We have raised our fund. We have provided our security. We have provided ambulance to guard ourselves. We're feeding ourselves. We are cleaning up after ourselves. So everybody's waking up to the fact that there is nothing you can accuse this generation of that is true anymore, right? We have shown an incredible level of organization. Things are happening that differently it wouldn't. And I was watching one of the local TV stations this morning, and every single person they interviewed live from the protest ground said, "This is my first time of coming out to join this protest." And I said to my friend, I said, "Do you know what is different? Is because those who normally will support this protest, but also worry about their safety and want to stay home and not endanger themselves and want to support from the comfort of their home. They've all watched a whole week go by, and every attempt to turn this protest into violence has been cut short. Like, I've witnessed even today when I went out, I saw thugs arrive at our protest procession, and I watched the thugs being repaired. Every single one of them was apprehended and then handed over to the police, right? This is Abuja. We have heard stories of similar things happening in Lagos and other places. In Port Harcourt, where you would have expected that to go violent, they've been very well behaved. Aside from Oshogbo, where the thugs successfully disrupted the protest, and then it led to the loss of life, and there's the accusation of trying to assassinate the governor and all of those things, and turning
which is ridiculous, by the way.
Please, somebody said it's a coup. I almost fell down from my chair trying to laugh. But the point is we've seen an incredible amount of support go into this process, that our parents are now standing back and saying, okay, something different is going on. Even within government circles, everybody's now realizing that this is you cannot accuse anybody of being politically sponsored, right? So everybody's now realizing that this is a completely different ball game, and they are coming to terms with the fact that something has snapped. Everywhere we have gone today, I've been out since afternoon. I barely just got home, and went as far as CBN headquarters. They've been around Abuja. They're moving around everywhere. So this is a different protest, and our parents are beginning to come. I remember when we were in Wuse, one woman was standing in front of her house and shouting on top of her lungs, "NSAS, NSAS." And I'm sure that a few days ago she probably would have been feeling that we're inconveniencing her. So I think they are all coming around to accept that this is different, and we're no longer the children. Well, I can't even say that I'm in the category of the people that are leading this protest, because what I've seen on ground, I will even say our own generation is behind. On Saturday, the Saturday before this last Saturday, when the first day I joined the protest about 7 days ago, and we're in front of the police headquarters. Every single time the police made move, to arrange and start shooting, I didn't see people try to run away from the protest ground. I saw people trying to say, "Oh, hold the line. If tear gas falls, this is what you need to do." I'm like, at one point, my friend had to call them and say, "What do you mean when you say when they shoot, we should hold the line? What exactly do you mean by hold the line?" Because I'm serious. So he was not explaining to us that when the tear gas falls, we should put wet cloth over it, pick it and throw it back at them. If they are shooting, we should lie down. I'm like, where did you learn all this from?
Hong Kong.
This is exactly this is Hong Kong playing out. These are TikTok generation, and they are not like the conventional protesters. The following day, even though eventually the police used tear gas and gun and all of that to chase us away, the following day they went 3 times. At least before I left, the police chased, shot, used water cannon, everything 3 times, and they gathered again. Before, and I've been to every protest. I was telling the journalist that I've been to every single protest since Yar'Adua. Since Yar'Adua fell sick and was taken abroad, I've been to every single protest. And at all those protests, once police shoot guns, put tear gas, we disperse and we go home. The best on the next day. But this time, on Sunday, a week ago, they dispersed the Abuja protesters 3 times, at least the ones I witnessed, and 3 times they regrouped. By the time I got home, the video arrived and they regrouped again. So these people are on a different ball game, and our parents are beginning to realize that this is not going to end until an answer comes forth from this fight.
Interesting, very, very interesting. Diwali, let me come to you. So let me try and twist that question a bit to say, let's tap from your big bank of wisdom. Can you tell us where you see? yeah, we are very lucky to have a sage like Diwali. So where do you see this?
Wait, just ignore what you said. Just ignore and focus on the question.
Fact only. So Diwali, for me, I am very optimistic about this. I'm very happy, and I see this going places. Like I see what I want is I want us to create more pain points for the oppressor. So stress is what I mean. So I don't want it to be comfortable for them any longer, because it's been comfortable for a very, very long time. And it looks like these guys are ready to sustain. They are ready to sustain this pressure. So to you, where do you think this is going to lead to? Or what do you think is going to happen in the next, say, few weeks or months?
You never can tell. You never can tell where it's going to go because of the nature of this kind of protests. Like Stanley was saying, the time passed, things were a bit more predictable. There was a group of people who were at the forefront, and you could say, let's come to the table and let's have a conversation. And then from there, things fall apart. But this thing is so organic at this time that you don't know. And if the guys in Lagos are saying something else, the guys in Ibadan can actually be saying something totally different. And if that group, if there is a divide, what I'm saying is that this thing has taken a life of its own. There's a map going around showing all the states of the country where the protests have been taking place from day 1 to day 9 or day 10 that it is now. And you can see where it started from 1 state and then 2 states and then 4, 8. And as of today, I think we have only 1 or 2 states of the federation that have not had any physical protests going on. That shows that this is happening across 34 states of the federation today, including federal capital territory. So my point is, this thing is, you can't tell, you can't put a finger to say this is what's going to happen. But here's what you need to know. You can already see in the news people saying there's going to be this panel or that panel, and then people are saying votes for people to be on that panel and things like that. There is a danger there, and I think maybe Stanley probably knows more about this than I do. There is a danger there that when people get into closed door meetings, you then depend on your own personal integrity to pull through, right? When things are being discussed in the open, there's a collective integrity, there's collective accountability. But then people go into behind closed doors, the reliance is now on people's personal integrity to pull through and to stay on focus, and we stay focused on the point. So that there is that danger, and you can already see that happening. And the reason why that is happening is because over the last 9 days, it's clear that this thing is not going to stop. These people are, the demands are serious. It's been from end SARS. Okay, we disbanded SARS, and they're now saying, look, it's not just end, bring these people to book, call out, let's see actions, suspend people, dismiss people, prosecute people, let there be hearings, let it be like a truth and reconciliation commission, similar to what Archbishop Desmond Tutu led in the apartheid era for South Africa. Those demands keep escalating, and then there's also talk about the IGP resigning, things like that. My point is that the conversation can very quickly be de-escalated once people come into a panel and then they go into rooms. If we stayed together, if we stayed, addressing public issues and asking people to make decisions in response to the demand that we're making, and go and announce those decisions on TV, go and announce those response on those actions on the radio, make clear announcements and take actions. We don't need to be behind closed doors on the panel to make anything happen. What's going to happen on the panel? You're going to talk about, what can you do on the panel that has not been done in the last 3-4 years? The Human Rights Commission has been set up, before. They've had panels, they've come up with reports. What has happened to it, right? So these panels and these committees are where protests go to die. So we should, in my opinion, I don't know where this is going, but I know where it shouldn't go, which is this approach of panels and everything. We can definitely get into dialogue with government. And look, what dialogue did we get into government before SARS was, banned as it were?
And Wale, this thing you're saying is where I agree with you, because if government needs people to talk to about solving this problem, they're not going to be asking random people on the street.
Yeah, there are people who are elected, there are people who have been
professionals, there are NGOs, there are experts who.
And there are also people who are duly elected. There are some people who are duly elected to be in positions to do these things.
There are people who are paid by government to also do this thing. There are civil servants whose job it is to drive this reform, whose job it is to do investigation.
Absolutely.
Like this. There is a police service commission that does nothing. They are responsible for discipline. They're responsible for recruiting police. So where are they? So all of this whole, like you said, is a place for protest to die. Once you set up a committee,
that's what. So like I was saying, the best thing we can do is to stay separate from the government and be the guys making the demands, and let them go and between themselves set up committees, let governors do what they want to do, then come back and respond to us and the public with the outcome of what they've done or with the steps that they need to take. I don't know where it's going, but I know where it shouldn't go.
Okay, I think we should address
But
the
can I
existing
just add
cases of.
something?
Okay, go, Mary. Mary, go. You can go.
Okay, yeah. So I think for me, and I've had conversations with people offline. Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, all
Yeah,
good, all good.
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I think for me, I've had conversations with various people that I wouldn't mention their names, but I think for me, this is what I find challenging. So yes, the protest does not have a leader, as people are saying. The protest, the movement, the NSAS movement does not want a leader, as people are saying, which is absolutely fine. I mean, what we're observing right now is that leaders are either like self-selecting, whereby they're choosing to like organize. There's certain people who have more popularity, more visibility, so we cannot deny that there are no leaders. That's the first point. Then the other point is, I think this is the first time that Nigeria has experienced this, or maybe I shouldn't say first time, but this is first time I'm experiencing this sort of like charismatic, influential, transformational type of leadership or leadership style. Because before, if you look at whether it's Light Up Nigeria, and I think I tweeted about this morning because I was thinking about it, or Occupy Nigeria, or Gen Voices, they were very transactional, whereby people were looking to get this SA role, TA role, whatever it is. So we've gone
And it
from,
did.
yeah, exactly. They did. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we've gone from very transactional leadership to what we're experiencing now, which is sort of transformational style leadership, which I like. But then the question is this, like, I'm not sure if you guys have really explored like African American history. They actually explored transformational leadership, right? You're talking about whether it's the Black Panther movement or Martin Luther King, who really like was going around and talking about the peaceful protest and nonviolence and all these different things. But in the midst of the transformational leadership that occurred during the civil rights movement, you had key leaders who were constantly negotiating, right? Martin Luther King was one. There are a couple of civil rights heroes who died this year, for example. I can't remember their name, it doesn't come to my mind. But they were
John
constantly
Lewis.
negotiating.
John Lewis.
Exactly, John Lewis, and I think there's one more person. So my question is,
Yeah, the Reverend Gentleman. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so my question is, one, can the leadership be sustained if we're not coming to the table to negotiate? And is this sustainable if we don't trust each other? Because one of the reasons why people are saying no leader is because there's no trust, right? People do not trust each other. So how do we go about creating trust and accountability? Because if that distrust is permeating this entire movement, is it really sustainable? Yes, we are driven by anger. Yes, we are driven, like, they are killing people, they are raping women, they are doing all these things. But for leadership to be truly sustainable and inspiring, there has to be some kind of trust. So I'm really struggling, like, how can we discuss transformational leadership and experience what's happening without building trust? That's basically what I wanted to say.
Bane, do you have a response? You haven't said anything since we started.
First of all, I want to say I'm very sorry for coming late. I was on another podcast and it ran over.
We understand.
Sorry, guys.
He actually comes to the territory when you book VIPs. It is expected.
Stop it, please stop. It wasn't even nothing serious. It was just, you know how it is now. We're football fans, so it was a football podcast. Anyway, yeah. So, I think I've been conflicted, because Mary does raise some really pertinent points, because I don't know how sustainable it is, because the thing is, so here's the thing. Here's what's going on. What we are asking the Nigerian government to do, and this is why I'm conflicted. What we're asking the Nigerian government to do are things that A, they're not willing to do, and also B, on a certain level, they don't have the skills or they know how to do. So I think it's two parts. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm right, Stan. You know, and people who are at least who you're more like conversant with these guys. I feel there are two things here, like the whole concept of how these protests have been organized, showing excellence and transformational leadership. You know, there's a call center, there is help for everyone. If you have, you know, all of this happens seamlessly in less than 2 weeks. You know, it's not the kind of excellence and it's not the kind of excellence that Nigerian leaders are able to provide. There's something. How do I put it now? They don't have the muscle memory. You know, when you do something over and over again, you have the muscle memory, don't you? There is no muscle memory, or should I say, there's no institutional memory to fall back on to say, okay, in this kind of situation, this is what we do. And because of that, I think this is why I'm a bit conflicted on the whole leadership thing. And I completely understand where people are coming from, honestly, because we all know all the shadowy figures on the wings trying to, you know, hijack the whole movement. We don't know how they've done it, you know.
If I may comment there, right, Mary?
Yeah.
Mary, your point is very clear, and I understand it. But if we also explore the analogy that you've raised, or the comparison you've raised, you know, those movements started with leadership, right? They started with leadership, and those leadership grew with the movement, or the movement grew with the leadership as well. But this is started rather on the backside of that. You know, this is started as a public outcry. If this was a movement that people started, you know, to say we are this group and we're championing this thing. For instance, if Sega Link was the one who started this thing, the movement aspect of this NSAS, the protest, excuse me, the aspect of this NSAS, then it will be different, right? We will say this is the person. Now, my position around this is, and many of us don't have much experience around this, right? So we are all winging it. But my thinking is that the way we started off with this thing is about an issue that is so fundamental, that is so, you know, that's causing across the whole country, so much that we need to build to a certain level a momentum before we then have reps that we would then say, okay, fine, go ahead and make this conversation. I don't think we are at that point yet. I think we are still at a very much immature stage of that demand, of that protest, of that agitation, for us to then ask for leadership, because there's still no trust factor. Like you said, there's a very low trust factor in Nigeria, you know, by default. And then this is an issue where, like you said, there's a series of people who have had this kind of approaches before, but they've been very transactional. So people are still having PTSD from those places, because you can still see.
Wale, can I jump in and
go ahead.
I completely disagree with you on the need to have this conversation with government. I don't think
No, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that you know,
like me, I donated to Gem Voices. So I said I donated to Gem Voices.
It's a form of
what about Light-Up Nigeria? What about Light-Up Nigeria? So there's so many of them, right? There's so many of them. What I'm saying, don't forget, what I'm saying is that, you know, initially I said that this thing we should stay separate, and then ask questions. So my response is that, to Mary's question, this movement did not start like those other ones that we've talked about. The freedom fighters, for, you know, this one started with the leadership, as it were, from, you know,
I think your internet is breaking up, because Mary.
Yeah, but I want to still disagree with some of the things that Wale is saying, and I do not believe that protest leaders should have the protest group should have engaged government in any form of conversation. The reason I say that is this. So for one, because you have been successful in organizing protests against an issue that affects you, does not automatically make you an expert in solving that problem. That's one of the reasons why I do not see any need. I can't think of any, and they've done very well in organization wise, right? But I do not think that there is any of the people at the front leading this protest who are experts in police reform or even governance reform. That's one part. The other part of it is that if government genuinely want to solve this problem, even if they do not have the money, even if they do not have the skill, even if they do not have the expertise to solve the problem, there are a ton of donors who will hire the right skill, who will fund that skill to help government solve the problem. And I hope I don't speak too much, but I know that one of the bilateral partners funded a team in the office of the vice president whose job was to champion police reform. Right? So telling me, and these are experts drawn from all the fields involved, lawyers and all of those people. So saying that people should have a conversation, that you have organized this, and I'm not belittling the marvelous work that those who have powered these protests have done. They've done excellently well, but I can assure you that they are not experts in engaging government. Look, there's an aura about political leaders that no matter who you are, if you are not used to engaging them, you find yourself saying yes sir, yes sir. You find yourself struggling to be polite.
Yes.
So you're so right.
Yes.
So let's not get
exactly
because you have successfully put together, and I have maximum respect. In fact, I've made it my point this thing that if anyone tries to slander feminists anywhere, I will fight. Right? Because they've shown incredible leadership. But we are talking about something that is extremely technical, right? We're talking about a political set of people who are not willing, who are not keen to solve this problem because this mess indirectly benefits them. So I will not, and you will see, I'll give you an example. Look at the video, even though I know people were taking that whole joke out of context, right? But look at him. Exactly. You know what it means to sit in front of the IG of police. Some people are in awe all through, and they will find themselves only saying yes sir, because they are not used to engaging at that level, right? You can take someone like Yemi Ademoleku, for instance, right? And I've been unfortunate to go to a meeting with her.
Unfortunate.
I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate to go to a meeting with her that we're meeting with Saraki.
We had unfortunate too.
Oh, I mean fortunate. You guys behave. Like we went to a meeting with Saraki, right? And myself, Sheung, Yemi were at that meeting with Saraki. At one point, the aide was looking at us as if we're crazy. And when the meeting ended, the guy said, look, he has been in several meetings with this guy. And I can't remember anybody talking to the Senate president the way people were talking. And he was really scared. He said at one point he was worrying that the man might throw us out of the office because there was nothing you are saying to someone like Yemi that she cannot counter you because she's used to sitting in front of people like this. But look at Davido. He's a celebrity, has controlled more crowd, right? But because you're not used to these people, especially when you are going to have a really, really difficult conversation,
sorry to cut you in, Stanley.
Yeah, go on.
Stanley, sorry to cut you short. Sorry, guys. I've been a whole. To add to what Stanley is saying a little bit is, like you earlier said, there's one thing to be able to stand in front of a crowd to perform, or to be able to stand in front of a crowd of people to say or do things. It's one thing to be able to sit down and address a particular issue where you have little or no ideas as to how it works. You don't know the technicalities of it. You end up
exactly.
Very apt. I said it's one thing. It's one thing to be able to speak. It's one thing to be able to speak, to be able to perform in front of a crowd. It's a totally different ballgame when you have to address a technical issue that you really don't have an understanding of. They are two totally different things, and one more thing that we should also address is part of the reasons these protests started in the first place is the issue of inclusion, exclusion, and trust of the political class. So if you are having a movement, and this early in that movement, there's a distrust with who will lead that same movement, we have to ask ourselves a lot of questions. We have to ask ourselves a lot of questions as to how to present the issues.
Exactly, that was exactly
as to what
my
we
point.
are really demanding for.
That was exactly
and as
my
to
point.
what it's very, very, if not, it will spill into anarchy very, very
So is
easily.
it possible?
As a matter of fact,
Is it possible
in Lagos now,
and everyone, is it possible, like what I said at first, is it possible to
Yeah.
maintain the momentum as a movement and make our demand clear? And then ask government within your rank whether you want to do with Human Rights Commission, police ombudsman, or whatever it is. Go and sort out our demand.
Wale, what's wrong with your mic?
Yeah, you sound really distant.
You're not audible enough.
I think first of all, we won't be really, really addressing the issues of being thoroughly through with ourselves if we say we are familiar with how this thing works. It's quite organic. It's still quite, we are still not, we don't have a full grasp of how this thing works in the sense of we haven't really experienced. Okay, go ahead, Stanley.
When government first said they wanted to, have a meeting and that they've invited a couple of CSOs, and I saw the list of people they invited, I was like, okay, this sounds like, you guys are on the right track. And I really would like to, hear what happened in that room, right? Because they gathered the right people, in my opinion. You don't need and this is where I say protest leaders should not have a meeting with these guys. You do not need the protest leaders to show evidence that you're responding to them. They called a meeting and they had Open Society Foundation. And if you go to Osiwa website, you can go and read the report that Professor Odinkalu and Noprin did on police brutality as far back as 2014 or so, right? You had that organization in the room. You had Ford Foundation in the room. You had Makoto Foundation in the room. You had
I think Yemi was there too, right?
Yeah,
Yemi was there too.
Yeah, Yemi was in the room, right? And these are people that have spent their life campaigning for governance reform. And they also have the resources to find the best talent to help the government, show real work. So at that point, I felt, okay, these guys might be on track. Because if I was sitting on the government side, my only request to them would be like, will you be able to fund a set of lawyers, investigators, and whatever it takes? Will you be able to pay them to make sure that we are able to move very quickly, right, to meet demands of protesters, at least on the part of holding those who were responsible for this abuse accountable for it? And I'm sure that in that room, if the money would have cost $500,000, they would have gotten $500,000 that same day. So when I saw the list of people who they brought into the room, I felt that, okay, maybe there's a path forward. So I wasn't at the meeting. I don't know what was discussed, but I was thinking that at the end of that meeting, I wasn't expecting somebody to come and start telling me about setting up another committee to help do police reform. All of the work that a new committee needs to do is already sitting on government shelf. What we need to move to is action, which is why everything they've said, the protesters are saying sorrow, right?
That's what they're saying. Shit. That's okay. That's sorrow.
Because this is not the time for talk. This is the time for action, right? And they could have asked for that action to start, and they would have gotten the money to move very quickly. So, for instance, I don't want to monopolize this thing, but for instance, when they say they want to set up investigative panel, right, for all the states, what look, this whole ceremony about releasing press release and all of that. Look, you need experts behind that panel. Who are they? Where are the lawyers who are helping with the investigation? Where are the lawyers who will deal with the prosecution that comes out of it? So those are the things that you do that gives me confidence that you are willing to go all out. But to gather a bunch of retired police officer, retired judge, retired this, and a sprinkle of two youths in their middle, you think that is enough? It's not. Nobody's fighting for, like Mary said, this is not about political position. This is about showing result for something that clearly affects everyone, and that result is yet to be seen. I've not seen, a few oddly room trials here. I've not seen anything that will convince me that this government will punish people who are responsible for making this happen.
I have a question.
For goodness
Stanley,
sake,
so I think
Yemi Shogunle still has his job.
Exactly.
I thought it was
yeah,
fine.
Stanley. So I think
Was it not fine?
you raised a very important point as to where I was going initially in terms of when you talked about that panel. I think I saw the list too. They had Ford Foundation, Mikasa Foundation. So that's what I think about when I'm thinking leaders who can be part of the movement. You know what I mean? Because there needs to be collaboration between experts like that and feminist coalition and things like that. And not feminist coalition just working on their own, and then they are listening to Banky W, and Debola is calling this one, and people are just, okay, I've done this before. I mean, collaborative efforts, collaboration between those types of experts, MacArthur Foundation. So that's what I mean when I think leadership. So I think when people are saying, oh, no leaders, they are speaking of transactional leaders. I think I was on Twitter today, and they've abused Banky W tire. You know what I mean? Because those are not the types of people I'm referring to when I'm talking about leaders, but collaboration between feminist coalition and whoever, groups that exist, whether it's Reynolds group or whatever, and experts like MacArthur Foundation.
So Mary and Stanley, how do we get this to the guys? How do we get this? Because I'm sure that I'm sure that there's a WhatsApp group somewhere where this feminist cool people are having their conversations, and they're probably they're probably also having this kind of argument to say we don't need leaders, we need leaders. I saw Odun tweeting and even FK tweeting to say, oh, I support the voting thing, to be honest, because if we don't get on the table, they will choose somebody for us, that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, but you can't have people, like Stanley said, you can't have people who are not experts, who are not technical experts on any kind of thing.
How do we get this
because
this fight is our fight as well, right?
Like
so how do we get this? So no, sorry, Jibril. How do we get this to them? How do we help them see that this is what needs to be happening?
Can I just interject? So a lot of the girls and I'm not trying to, I'm a millennial too, so it's not like I'm like a grandma or whatever, but a lot of the girls in feminist coalition, so a few of them are like mentees of mine. So so I think we're also having this issue of take the speck out of somebody's eye, but you can't take it out of your own eye. So when they released the names of themselves and blah blah blah, I told them, I said, don't release these names, just keep walking, keep the momentum going, blah blah blah. And they went ahead and released their personal names. We are the ones that formed this. They updated their Wikipedia pages.
I thought it was a really bad idea.
They updated. Yeah, they updated their Wikipedia pages. This. And I remember saying, I remember telling them, I thought I told you not to release your names. And so I was like, oh, who cares? Your opinion doesn't matter. So if people are in echo chambers and they are saying, okay, they want government to change, but they themselves are not instilling certain leadership qualities and values. That's why I keep saying, if there is low trust, how do we expect to keep this movement sustainable? If people are not listening to each other, if people they are not asking for help, yes, so far it's been excellent, it's been transformational. But for it to really get to the next level and strike and begin to break down basically institutional barriers, there has to be a sustained transformational leadership. But you cannot have people who are poking other people's eye, but they can't take the speck out of their own eye. Do that.
So Mary, and I look, say no more, right? Because I know what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. My point is that these guys, the fight is not theirs anymore. They may have started the conversation, they may have been at the forefront, and they're doing a fantastic job, and we give them credit for that. But how do we get them to do what is right? Like, even though we mentioned it to them, and you've hinted at something now, which I wouldn't like to explore further, but even when you suggest things and they don't take it, right? How do we make sure that doesn't deter us and the remaining people from getting what we deserve from this kind of movement, which is getting them to do the right thing? Who do they listen to? So if they don't listen to us, shame on them. But whatever it is,
maybe get Debola today, Banky W. You really have to get some of the superstars, perhaps. I don't know.
which is the problem, isn't it? Because these are the people that we are saying we don't want representing them. It looks like a conundrum.
But some people are listening.
Doesn't it?
Jibril.
Yeah.
Jibril, guys, I think Jibril wants to say something. Jibril, do you want to comment?
It's to be honest, I myself, I haven't settled down onto what I think this particular thing we are facing is. Because like I said earlier, whether we like it or not, it's still new. And whether we like it or not, if you look back in history, even in our own history as Nigeria, there are a lot of parallels. Some things are just old and some things are just modern. Like Mary rightfully
I was going to say that I think we're getting carried away.
Complaints. Yeah, I think we're getting carried away.
We're getting carried away because there was video Kudirats.
Exactly. We won't know where we are going to end until it actually ends. Be prepared for a lot of branches to come from this tree. Be prepared for it. A lot of branches will come out of this tree. And I'll take you guys back to the first protest, the first major protest in Nigeria, from my own point of view. Studying Nigerian history was when the coup plotter, it was not a coup plot, but it was the killing of the officers in the north by Nzegu, Kaduna Nzegu. It was something very similar in the sense that younger people had an idea that the ruling class were not including them. And there was corruption, and there was bad governance, and there was incompetence, and blah, blah, blah. So a group of younger military men decided that, you know what, we can do something about this. They wiped off a certain set of people and they tried to take over. As a matter of fact, Kaduna Nzegu wasn't looking to become the head of state at the time he did that coup. It was something very similar to what we have now. I don't like what is going on. I think we can do better. And let me shake up that class. Then it was military power. Now it's media power. Who has the ability to control people on social media, who has the ability to put people together to have a voice. Those are the parallels. Now, the next level of what happened after that incident is also what we should be prepared to see now. After that incident, we had a number of leaders that came from the military who were not exactly old. Gowon, Buhari, Murtala Mohammed, and so many of them in that particular set. It was the same younger people type thing, in quotes. There were a lot of young people. My point is, let me cut my story short. We are here now complaining about majority of those guys that came at the end of that movement, in quotes. So if we are going to movement of our sorts, of similar sorts now, we should be prepared to learn from what went wrong in those times. If you are complaining now that we don't trust leadership and we want to have things done in a certain way because we don't trust leadership, and we have a very small forum of people that are starting up a movement for everybody now, and there's still no trust, there's still no politicizing. Politics will always be played through every level. You have to be able to negotiate, let one thing go for the greater good of whatever it is. But when you start to be transactional, because like what Mary said, when you start to put out your name, it might not be, I want you as the current leader to give me something. It might be, I see a space I can feel to give myself leverage for something else personal. It has already taken away the authenticity and the honesty in the particular thing that you're doing now. So we need to be very, very careful. If not, we are just going to run a rat race. And we're just going to end up in the same bubble or the same space that we are actually complaining about.
Bane,
My 2 cents.
Bane,
Exactly.
do you want to give us your thoughts on this? And I also want you to touch on the existing cases of extrajudicial killings. We've heard the stories of, this Chijoke guy, Jimo. There's this one that is doing the rounds on social media now. This man with like 5 kids that the police killed his wife.
The wife.
Yeah, coming
Yeah.
back from church, and they asked him for $2,000, and he said he didn't have any money, and they thought he was commercializing his keke napep, and he said, he was just using it for his family runs, and they shot him and his wife. So something like that, because if even if the protests go away, when are they going to address these issues? When are they going to really look at these injustices, and of course the leadership issue? Because I know you haven't spoken since you said something, so I wanted to give you another round.
Yeah. So on the leadership issue, again, I was just thinking about it today. I was like, I think I've also been impressed by what's going on, and I've been happy, and I'm still impressed by what these young ladies and young men have achieved. But my fear is that we're getting carried away. I've been seeing a lot of. Even myself, I tweeted it a few times. I was like, this has never happened before. But I'm now beginning to think about it. It has. Honestly, it has happened before. June 12th, the June 12th protest. Look, the June 12th protest took place over years. It didn't, we're talking days. It was over years, essentially. Obasanjo was made president in 1999 because as to placate, okay, we did you wrong in 1993, take, which they rejected, which was rejected by the Southwest Bloc. But I digress. But my point is that let's not. I think there's a danger here, and I have fallen for that danger as well. That we're getting in on our head, and we're beginning to think we are God's gift to earth. I think we need to come down to earth. I'm not saying we should stop the protest. I'm saying sustain the protest, but we should be aware of the real danger of it not achieving the aim. And I tell you what, it will be a shame if we don't achieve anything tangible from this whole movement. It will be a shame because Jimo is dead. Jimo is never coming. Jimo is never coming back. Even if and I use Jimo because he was the first that was killed as a result of this protest, and he wasn't taking part in the protest. Jimo Ishaq is dead. Jimo Ishaq, Jimo Ishaq's parents are heartbroken.
Yeah.
His wife is without a husband. His kids, if he has kids, are without a father because of some stupid policemen. If we do not calm down and look at the big picture and begin to actually snap ourselves out of the fact that we're different. We're not different. Like they say, history rhymes. History rhymes. What's happening now has happened before. The only differences are the tools. Like I said, there was Radio Kudirat. Wasn't there? There was Radio Kudirat. So the fact that we have NSAS radio now, it's nothing out of the ordinary. We need to calm down. And I completely agree with with the Stanley approach, which is get the experts in the room who we know can't be. I mean, the government is not going to bribe Arthur Anderson's MacArthur. Is it MacArthur? MacArthur Foundation. Before I mispronounce, before I did it to run it. The government isn't going to bribe people from that kind of. Right. I've not actually thought about it from that aspect. So let's get that.
Imagine trying to bribe Bill.
I mean, the guy bails us. The guy can bail us out as a nation. I still have a lot left over.
And so, which is why every single time they are saying they are setting up committee, they want people in. I just feel, look, it's all in their effort to break up the protest. It's not about solving the problem.
Yeah.
Because if you want to solve the problem, there are people with experts with that. It will not cost you a dime. If the federal government
Yeah.
at that meeting asked Makoto Foundation, Osiwa, Ford Foundation, right? You said defeat and all of those development partners and say, please, with this reform we are trying to chase will cost $1 million. Right there in that room, they will get $1 million to fix the problem. So when they are saying they are trying to form committee, as far as I'm concerned, it is only in their effort to break this protest. It is not
And
solve the
now
problem.
people can't see behind their nose, beyond their noses,
it
right?
was my turn to speak, guys. Oh,
Yes, please. Yeah.
You have 2 more minutes. 2 more
Okay,
minutes.
cool.
We have 55
Quickly.
minutes now. So
yeah, so I just think that the reason I think there are several reasons, and I could be wrong. There are several reasons why the government isn't so quick or isn't so eager to solve this problem. And I think there's several dimensions to it. I think that there's actually a high network, like a network of highly placed people that are customers, and I could be wrong, for human bodies, human parts, because there is no, if you look at it, some of the random killing, some of the random killing, I know I'm saying something serious now, but some of the random killing of people, but it doesn't make any sense.
organ trafficking,
and when their bodies are found, sometimes parts are missing.
Yeah.
We call it ritual killing in Nigeria, but there's no such thing as ritual killing. It's just the black market for body parts. And we know that this happens. We know. So the question is, there is a criminal element to this as well. And
but did you guys also see the video?
Sorry?
Did you guys also see the video where someone said they get 200,000 to be posted to SARS? Did you guys see that video where they have to pay 200,000?
Yeah. So my question is, there's a real danger, or there's a real danger for some people in power, in my opinion, of actually going to jail for criminal reasons if all the SARS men start actually talking. That is why, in my opinion, they're not pushing them out, because if they all start talking, like that guy, that Nwafo, is it Nwafo?
Yeah.
The guy, that Nwafo guy, I have a feeling that he has a lot of debt on.
Definitely,
he has
definitely.
A lot of
I don't know how true it was.
It is not in their interest for him to stand trial, because a lot of debt will come out. So that's another angle. And so for that's the kind of way I think we should think about this thing. The truth of the matter is that government, apart from the fact that they don't want us to tell them what to do, is actually a criminal element to all of this that they are not willing to blow out in the open. So I think we should see this as a very long fight. We shouldn't see it as a long fight that we have to sustain. And for the killers, there's nothing happening until I think the second part of your question, Mondiu.
Yeah.
Until they begin to really agree to our demands, there's nothing happening. There'll be no justice for those people. There's no justice for Ishaq.
I mean,
for Dima, there will be no justice for them.
And I think,
for example, like no police officer has been arrested. They keep talking about panels, but even I think they're also putting young people's lives at risk too. Like I can't imagine, New York is also facing a lot of like protests with the Black Lives Matter movement. I can't imagine them putting a young person on a panel for one of these NYPD bad eggs. I mean, that person will become a target. They come after your family and stuff, because what you're saying is, okay, you don't deserve a job. And this is a grown man with kids, with bills and everything. And a young person, 2 years or whatever younger than him, is telling him he no longer works. Like, people will not take that. It's not a funny matter. It's a death or is a do or die affair. It's not a funny matter. So all this panel, it sounds good because the Nigerian government understands that people are very transactional. Maybe they are looking to go to business school, apply for scholarships and stuff like that. So they'll come and talk about panel. But you telling a grown man with kids that he no longer has a job, I mean, it's not a funny matter.
Guys, we are at
No,
50,
Monju, before you
59.
go off,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
one spanner that's been thrown into the wheel of this protest now. It's the LGBTQ aspect of it. And it would be very I think that it would be bad if we don't talk about it before
Should
we,
we
close this.
should we discuss this next week?
It's fine.
I
It
think
looks
we
like
should wait
Monju
till
has to
next
be
week
going. No,
because it's going to be very exhausting.
My last take is that
Yeah, Wale,
IG must
keep that on ice. We'll definitely discuss it next week.
IG must
100%.
be fired before this protest ends. IG must go from this job. That's my personal thing. Yeah, he does not have
I
control
agree.
of the police rank and file. He does not control them. He does not lead them. There's no reason why he should remain on the job. That's my
He
last.
doesn't
take.
even know them. He doesn't even know where they are. He doesn't even know anything about them. You know, like the crazy thing about SARS,
There's no
the crazy thing
spreadsheet.
about SARS is that Mondiu, if you were in Lagos, right?
Yeah.
If all of us on this call, including Mary, if we're just broke, like if we didn't have any money to eat, and one of us has one gun, AK-47, all we need to do is to print FSARS on black t-shirts. No, this is not funny, right? All we
Exactly.
need to
And
do
you
is
can
to
do
print
bits. Yeah.
FSARS on black t-shirt and use Stanley's Corolla tinted window.
You want to drag my palace, Abi?
We just drive to Binyore Road, and we're not armed robbers. We're just FSARS, because nobody will ask us for ID card. Nobody will ask for anything. We have gun. We harass people. We make money and we go home. It's so bad that if you are in Lagos and FSARS is harassing you on Badagry Expressway, you escape and you pick up your phone and you call the police commissioner or wherever it is in Lagos and say that there's police raiding people at this place. The man can tell you, and he'll be very correct, that he's not aware of any police officers checkpoint there. 100%. And he'll be very correct. And you also will be very correct, because they don't report to the state commission, they don't report to the state police, they don't do anything. They can literally just breathe into your state, wreak havoc.
There's no oversight.
No recourse to anything.
There's no
and
one
just
checking.
Go home. And nobody
there's no
knows.
one policing them.
Yeah, nobody. So the IG has to go, because he clearly does not know what's happening under him.
Okay, last question. Jibril, when was the last time we actually fired a security chief?
Tafa Balogun, I think. Sorry.
When was the last time?
I'm not Jibril.
Jibril, when was the last time we fired a security chief or any high-ranking member of the security apparatus of the country?
Like Stanley said earlier, the fact that this issue came up alone should have cost the IG's job. The fact that it came up and it became this what's the word for it? What word like is for it? This embarrassing alone should have cost him his job. Or everything else.
Essentially, we've never sacked somebody before.
Everything that comes after is just details. Everything that comes after is details. Nothing else should matter at this point. And
no. Jibril, to the question, is that we've never sacked anybody before?
Under Buhari's administration, I don't think
under Buhari's administration, I don't think any security service chief has been changed. I can't remember. Maybe one. Maybe one at the beginning of his tenure. I think, I'm not sure. Maybe when these things are mostly, I don't want to use the word political, but everybody.
Yeah, but it wasn't as a result. It wasn't as a result of incompetence or deep insecurity issues. The Boko Haram, what actually happened in the Middle Belt, all these killings, extrajudicial killings, and the things that are actually coming out now, shocking. Like I'm even scared to read because of my mental state. I'm scared to to put so much pressure on my mental state, because the things I'm reading is just shocking. Even Ebuka came out today, or was it today, on channels, and he narrated his own experience. I can remember in 97, my dad got back from work and he sat myself and my brother down saying that they just killed his best friend's first son. This was in 97, SARS. That was the first time I heard about SARS. And he said they stopped them. They were actually going to a party in Idiroko, I think close to Shagamu. They stopped them and they accused them of, being armed robbers or something, and they march them to a place. I think they call that place like a killing zone or something, and they just kill them. And when their parents heard about it, just told their parents that they were armed robbers. No arrests were made. No
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 trials,
no
no
trial,
court,
nothing.
nothing.
And I'm pretty sure if you speak to a lot of people, if you speak to 10 people, somebody will identify with a similar story. Somebody will come out and say, okay, this happened to me, this
Yeah, I mean
happened to someone I
we've
know.
been hearing it all week. We've been seeing it
Exactly.
all week.
And this
Yeah.
this happened in 97. It happened in 97. So it just goes to show you that
13 years ago.
yeah,
Or what am I
it's
saying?
23
No,
years ago.
23 years ago.
Yeah. So it just goes to show that this issue is just it's an absolute shambles. Anyway, guys, we have to go. It's 1 hour 5 minutes, and thanks to everyone for joining. Mary, thank you for joining us once again.
Happy
And
to be
Mary,
here.
thanks.
yeah,
Thank
well,
you,
we are not
Mary.
trying to shy away.
It
We are
was
not
fun
trying to
as
shy
always.
away from the LGBTQ conversation. We are definitely going to have that conversation next
Next week.
week, because I think that's when we are going to fight. Because I saw Wale's message that we should be more disruptive and more argumentative on this platform. I mean, which is fine. So
Inclusive.
yeah, as well. Yeah, inclusive as well. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Mary joining us
that
next week.
Yeah, I was
that's
gonna ask that as well. Is she coming
yeah,
next week?
Mary, you can join us next week.
No, you should. No, you can't. You should join us next week.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you want to
It's
come
a
on,
demand.
Mary, anytime
It's
you
an
want to come on the
NSAS
podcast,
demand.
I'm
you can
coming.
actually come on the podcast. Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
coming.